Welcome to another episode of AnimeCons TV. My name is Doug Wilder. This week we're going to talk about one of the topics that comes up a lot, and you see a lot of feedback on it both from attendees and even from staff members who have to deal with it. And it's something that happens at almost every convention I've ever been to, and it's a thing that people have to work out, and that's autographs. We're actually going to kind of divide this into at least two sections, hopefully only two, but maybe more. This is the first episode of it. We're mainly going to talk about tips for attendees to kind of make their autograph sessions the best they can, and just how to improve it and things like that. We're definitely going to do an episode later on about what things staff members can do to make sure things go well. But for now, this episode's focused on the attendees. So if you're a staff member and want to learn some tips, feel free to join us. But we're definitely going to give you guys a more dedicated episode down the line. So first and foremost, like we say for just about everything about going to any convention, do your research ahead of time. Look up the policies for the autograph sessions run by the convention. See what they are. Read them, reread them, double check things. If you check their website, check their Facebook feed, however they do it, make sure you get it clear. And if you can't find it, ask for it in advance. Don't ask, just wait for the convention to arrive to be able to ask for it. I mean, it should be in the program guide or other areas, but the more knowledge you have ahead of time, the better off you're going to be, the more prepared you can be. The other reason you should do your research, and this is, take a look at what guests are coming to the convention and are going to be doing autograph sessions. It can feel really frustrating if you learn after the convention's over that someone that was involved in a favorite franchise of yours or worked on a project that you really loved was at the convention and doing autographs, and you had no idea who they were because you'd never heard their name before or something like that. So take a moment to look at the guest page. I mean, just because you never know. They might be someone that you thought were big. And this happens a lot at anime conventions, especially with Japanese guests. Not everyone knows these names and stuff like that. So just take some time, look at the guest list, and find out if it's someone that you might want an autograph from. Next up is plan your time accordingly. Autograph sessions usually take up at least an hour or two of your time, just between waiting in line, getting it, and everything like this. I feel like every time I've gone to an autograph session, it's either I'm hurrying from or to another must-do event at the convention for me, so you have to plan accordingly. A lot of conventions now are starting to try and enforce a policy of telling attendees, don't line up in the area before X amount of time before things start off. And I think you should respect the convention's policy on that, but at the same time, don't go to the other side of the convention center. Maybe see if there's a panel nearby that you want to check out for part of, that you can duck out of if it's in the dealer's room. Maybe check out some of the booths that are nearby where they're going to be offering autographs, things like that. So that way, once the line actually does open, you can get right there. But if they ask to try and be out of the way, respect the convention's wishes. Next up is once you're in line, you're getting ready, you're excited. Things you can do while you're in line is get your items ready. So say you're having a DVD or a Blu-ray that you want signed, and you want the insert in the little case signed. Get that out. Get that ready. If you've got a CD insert that you want signed, don't forget to take that out. Things like that. Just have it ready to go. I actually suggest if you can get that stuff out of it ahead of time so you even have less to carry, awesome, do it. Another thing I really recommend a lot of people do, and it's something it amazes me how many people don't realize that this is a thing until after they've been told by someone else who's in the past. Get some Post-it notes. Just, little things like this that you can just stick right on the item and not damage it. The reason why these are so great is if you have special instructions, like you don't want it going, like you're getting an autograph for a friend that can't make the convention, or your name has, possible different ways of spelling it, things like that. You can just write on that note, address it to so-and-so, address it to Doug, address it to Elizabeth, address it to Patrick, things like that. And that way you can hand off your item to the handler or directly to the guest. They have it right ready to go. It's easy to instructions, and that way you're not going to wind up possibly with like a misspelled name. You don't want to see like sketch with a Q in it, or Shiva with a W somewhere, things like that. So that little note like that just makes it easier, and it saves time later on, because then sometimes they're squinting at your badge trying to see if their name. That little note makes things easier ahead of time. Some conventions will have staff passing them out beforehand, but if you've even got it before that, bam, you've saved even more time. And it's just a good way to do it, and it makes things easier once it's your turn to get your autograph. Also, while we're on the topic of while it's your turn, if you're super starstruck, like there's a guest that's coming by, and they are the most important person of the thing that you absolutely love, and you're just absolutely starstruck, you can't talk, you're flummoxed or whatever, you need a minute, step aside, let someone else, the person behind you in line, go, take a moment to collect yourself, and then hop back in line. Maybe just signal to a staff member that you just need a moment. It's easy to get excited no matter how controlled you are and things like that. So just be aware of that, and instead of holding up the line, just let other people go. Most staff members are aware enough to kind of see that you're just taking a moment, and will let you get back in line after you've collected yourself. So I wouldn't worry too much there. So next up, what to get signed. I'd say the thing to be mindful of there is keep it appropriate. Don't ask for bootlegs. That's a big one. Don't ask people to sign bootleg versions and stuff. That's just really rude and disrespectful for the time and effort that they put into it. If it's, something like a craft item you created, sure, go for it. But bootlegs, just don't do it. It's not a good idea, and you shouldn't be buying bootlegs anyway. So just find something more appropriate. But you can be creative too. I've gone to Star Wars Celebration. I've seen Hayden Christensen sign jars of sand, fun sand, from people with a grin on his face. Anime Boston, I want to say 2005, 2006. Don't quote me. It's been a couple years now. But they had David Kay, who did the voice of Megatron in Beast Wars, among plenty of other things. Someone brought a Beast Wars Megatron toy figure to have David Kay sign, and he was ecstatic by it and started doing the voice, playing with a little toy while he's signing the autograph for the fan. So there's definitely ways to be creative. One thing that I've started to like doing is you can get these things that are just called shikishi. It's just a little thin whiteboard. Like you can see, it's got white on one side and kind of a design on the back there. But these are just, these are very common, especially for Japanese guests. They know a lot about them. To get a signature on it, things like that. You can buy them pretty cheaply on Amazon, especially if you buy a bunch at a time. And if you know a lot of friends that are going, things like that, you can save money. They're only a couple dollars. And most Japanese guests know what to do there. Most English-speaking guests, they'll figure it out too. It's not that complicated. Another thing that they're good for is if the guest is an artist and has the time, they might do a little sketch on the shikishi too. So it's not always a guarantee, and this is also one of those things, read the policies ahead of time. They may start doing sketches and just realize they don't have enough time and switch to just autographs, but it's a good thing to do. The other nice thing about this is you can see it's a pretty nice even shape. They're good for getting your autographs framed down the road too. So now you've got a nice keepsake that you can kind of display on your wall or whatever. And they're thin, so they travel well. And if all else fails, one thing you can use is the program guide from this is AnimeCons from this last year, because most program guides have an autograph section right in there. So this is good if you want to get a bunch of autographs and you want to have it all in one place. Nice memento of the con right there. That's a good way to do it. So again, you can be creative and things like that, but just keep it appropriate. The other thing to keep in mind there is some conventions, or even it can be specific guests will only sign very, very specific items. Like maybe they did like a special art print for the convention that's a limited edition that's only going to be at that convention. That's the only thing they're going to sign. Or they're only going to sign materials related to the last project they worked on, things like that. Everyone has different rules. It can vary wildly. Once again, we'll say it again and again, do your research and just be prepared for that. That's just the way it is. And they also may say, oh, it's only 1 autograph per person, only 2 per person, and that could change because all of a sudden it's taking more time, and they can only go from, they go from 2 autographs per person to 1. I don't think that's too big an issue. If you're still getting 1, that's still pretty great. I mean, some cons, if you're in line and all of a sudden you're getting nothing even though you waited in line, that's an issue for staff. But as long as you're getting 1, I think that's still pretty good. Next up, if you're asking the guest for a photograph, again, ask the staff ahead of time because they usually have a handler, that's checking in with people, a couple people behind the person currently getting an autograph. Ask if it's okay to ask for a picture. They may say yes, they may say no, they say yes, picture, no, but don't go behind the table. They may say you can only get a picture of the person signing your thing. They may say no photography at all. Ask and be prepared for whatever possible answer they give. And it can vary again depending on how timing goes and stuff like that, which is again why it's good to get in line early, because usually early on the rules are a little more loose, and as time goes on, as the time crunch happens, the rules tend to get a little stricter, and they can change while things are going on. So just be prepared there. If you want to give the guest a gift, once again, we're going to keep saying it. Read up on the rules ahead of time. Some guests may accept them, some may not. It varies from guest to guest. First off, remember that guests have limited luggage space. They can't take a big giant thing home, especially if all of a sudden 5 attendees want to give them something huge. Even if they're going to a convention that they can drive to, they still have a limited amount of space. Just kind of be courteous and aware of that. And that's kind of how it goes there. If it's something handmade, cool, don't worry about it. But a big rule, and I can't emphasize this one enough, don't give guests food. People might have allergies. It can also be just kind of a safety thing, and food can go bad, and just there's so many issues. Even if you've heard one guest say, oh, well, my favorite drink is Moxie soda because I'm from Maine. All of a sudden now they're getting, 20 2-liter bottles of Moxie. There's no way they're going to be able to drink all that or take that home. So just don't give them food. It's not a good idea. And because it is kind of a security and safety thing, most likely if they give it to them and it's just going to get thrown away. So just, I know your intentions may be the purest in the world, but just don't give a guest food as a gift. If they say they really like something, maybe do a nice little drawing of them with their favorite food. Like, hey, here's Doug with hugging a giant bottle of Moxie soda because he really likes that. That's a way to do it, but just don't give guests food gifts, plain and simple. And last but not least, don't forget to be polite. It's easy to get a little frustrated if you've been waiting in line for a long time because the guest is super popular. But just, don't forget to say thank you to the guest and be respectful of the staff's instructions because they're dealing with a lot too. Many guests have to travel a lot of a way to get to a convention, things like that. Asking them to sign, maybe 100 autographs in an hour, that's can get a lot of hand strain and stuff like that. So just be respectful and say thank you. And especially if it's a guest you really like, if they have a good reaction from, hey, all the attendees at XYZ Con were super polite, maybe they might come back to that convention because they had a good memory of it. So that's one of the reasons you be polite. And just there. And once again, once you get your autograph, head on out. If you want to take a picture of your item to share on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, go for it. But make sure you're out of the way after it. Take a picture. share it with social media, and if you know the handle of the person that was giving you the autograph, maybe just say a note like, "Hey, so and so signed my DVD booklet. Thanks," and things like that. Because little gestures like that can go a long way in affecting how a guest views a convention. And if there's things like that, they may be more inclined to come back to a convention or do other conventions in general. So that's it too. Again, we're going to do another episode in the future about things staff members can do to make autographs better. But in the meantime, if you have any tips for attendees that get autographs at conventions, things that you've learned over the years or things you wish more attendees were aware of, don't forget to contact us. You can comment down here on YouTube. You can also contact us on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, on Tumblr. We're all over the place. Don't forget to drop us a line. Anyway, I'm Doug Wilder, and we'll see all you guys again soon.